I am live, I think. Yes, I am live. Yes, I'm live. Man, what a trial it's been getting live today. Usually I go live about 3 hours ago, and it took me this long to get online. And I'm not in a park, as you can see. We've been talking about this in my live stream a lot recently, and I need to look at the camera instead of looking down at me in the picture there. And I've had this problem when I live stream from my computer before. Somebody's online. Hello. Usually we do this in the park, but because I'm running out of what's that called now, data on my my package on my phone, I said, right, I'll go and do it, where I can get Wi-Fi. Where I can get Wi-Fi is here. So we're Wi-Fiing from we're living from inside today. Usually I'd be outside, you'd be able to see the world, but I did, open the curtains and people can see the world outside behind me there. And usually in the park, we would, talk about the coronavirus situation, and people be able to see people like going about their daily lives and things like that. And that's one of the reasons why I like to go live in the park. But because like I say, I'm running out of data on my phone, we've gone live from let me do that. Going live from here, from indoors, so that we can talk about stuff, without me ruining my package and without me losing a ton of data and stuff like that. So so we're live in Tokyo, Japan. I have been doing this most days, every day if I can, to give people an update of what it's like here on the ground and the reality of Tokyo. And I have a few people who watch these live streams regularly, but it's 3 hours later. And so any updates that I give to those people, they're probably not online right now. So I apologize to those guys for not being online. And anyone who's never watched these videos before, just to let you know, I got an email, all content creators got an email from YouTube that said that this kind of live content about coronavirus wouldn't be monetized or anything like that. So, and that's when I decided to do them. Because I don't believe in things like clickbait and making profit off of somebody else's loss and things like that. So that's why we're doing these lives. That's why I've done them every day for the last, I think 14 days. Is this 14th, 15th day that I've done these lives from Tokyo, so I can give people an update on what it's like on the ground here. But it seems like people in the rest of the world are struggling a lot more than we are in Tokyo now. It used to be that this was a place that people were looking at and saying, what's going on in Tokyo? How is that a big deal in Tokyo? And is that going to be a big deal in the rest of the world? They were looking to us to see what could potentially come to them later. But right now, it seems like Tokyo is way down the list on places of concern. The major places of concern are Central Europe right now, where Spain, France, Germany, and Italy are in, challenging times. They have what they call, they're saying it's the epicenter of the current pandemic. It used to be in China, but now that's moved into Europe. But then in North America, especially in the United States, there's an awful lot of cases growing there as well. So it's moved away from the Far East where I am here in Tokyo, Japan, and it's kind of moved into more European and North American sort of areas that have got the concern. But that's not to say that Japan doesn't have situations, and issues which are going on here. For example, there was announcements made yesterday. This is pretty big, major news. And I will say before I get into that, for the screen I'm looking at down here, the quality doesn't look great, but I don't know what it's like for people on the other end. I'm streaming this in 5G, so with any luck, the quality for you guys on the other end is pretty good. But let me move this out of the way. It looks pretty bad in the background there. That looks a bit better. So the biggest news from Tokyo, Japan today is that yesterday the parliament held a vote to give the prime minister powers to call a state of emergency, but not to actually have a state of emergency. So it's kind of unusual. I would have thought that the prime minister already had the powers to call a state of emergency without actually asking for them, but it turns out that he doesn't. That he actually needed to get like a new law passed that would give him the power of to call a state of emergency. So he's got that power now, but he hasn't actually done it, which is kind of odd that it's that way around. But there is going to be, for the first time in my memory, now I'm not a native Japanese person, obviously, so I don't watch the news as avidly as maybe Japanese people do in Japanese. I get most of my news content in English, but for the first time in my knowledge, and I might be wrong in this, that the prime minister is going to make a live address to the nation which I don't think he's ever done before. And it's going to be at like 6 p.m. tonight. And I'm assuming at that time he's going to talk about what powers he's going to enact and what powers he's going to use to try and control the spread of the coronavirus here in Tokyo, Japan. So the big news is that yesterday the Parliament voted to give him those powers, and today at 6 p.m. and right now it's 10 a.m. So in about 8 hours' time, he'll have a live address the nation situation going on, and perhaps potentially actually enact those powers and work on them. So there are some people who are concerned about that. The powers that he could potentially have, some of them make sense. For example, he could, unilaterally take control of a building. If he needs a warehouse to supply, to stock supplies of masks, and he just needs to say to this company, sorry, I'm taking your warehouse for the next 2 weeks. Here's, to cover the cost of that, but I need your warehouse and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's in the public interest and there's a reason that he needs to do that, then fine. But also what it is in the laws, and this is kind of the interesting part about the state of emergency in Japan, if he does enact it, is it will also give him the power to control the flow of information in the media. And he can say to the broadcasters which stories to run and equally which not to run. And some people are thinking like, is that a little bit too much like communism? Is that a little bit too much like what's going on in Russia right now, where the parliament and Prime Minister, President Putin controls the flow of information on the media and stuff like that. So there are concerns that this is a big deal. So, and Brannon is in there. Be safe out there. Hello, Brannon. Brannon, I've been meaning to talk to you. Brannon's just popped a couple of comments in the text on the side. Thank you for doing that, and thanks for the like, the thumbs up. But Brannon drops a comment on my videos like often, almost every day, and I just haven't had time to answer comments these days, and I read every single one of the comments, and I've been meaning to find time to get back to the comments and say to people like Brannon, thanks for dropping the comments, how you doing and stuff, but it just isn't there right now. I'm doing these morning lives, and like I say, this is like the 14th day in a row I've done them, and doing the afternoon, the evening sneaker content as well. So, and I have a full-time job, and I have a young family, so it's a lot of work, and keeping up with the comments is a real challenge right now. So I apologize, especially to like people like Brannon who do drop comments on a lot of my videos and interacts a lot with me, and I really regret not being able to do that right now. Hopefully what I'm going to do today is after I'm finished here, right behind me is my sort of studio for shooting the videos. The green screen's already set up over there, and the place where the camera and the tripod are already set up and stuff like that. And I'll be shooting my videos after I finish this live. And then after that, I'm hoping to spend, some time. I'm hoping to spend some time, replying to comments and stuff. Brannon says, I want to do more. I just went back to school for nursing. No way. My mum was a nurse. That was her first job out of, high school when she was younger. She was a nurse for maybe 10 years or so like that. It's and Brannon, I don't know how much, you already know about nursing, but if you want to know who the absolute like queens of nursing are, or kings or queens of nursing, I suppose, but they were only women in the one that I saw, is NICU. No, it's not NICU. Is it NICU? Yes, it is NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit. So Raw Heights, what's going on, man? Thanks for dropping by. I'm doing okay. Things are fine here. I've been doing these lives every morning, so things are getting insane out there in Utah. Yeah. No, the news looks, sorry guys, but like full disclosure, Japan it's a little bit communist. Man, is that comment going to go viral? Japan's a little bit communist. Japan's only had the same party in power. So if you think in America, Democrats and Republicans, the same party's been in power in Japan. In the last 60 years, 54 of them have been the same party, and then twice the other party got into power. So realistically speaking, it's a one-party country, really. Even though they have a democratic parliament and a diet and all that kind of stuff and elections and everything like that, realistically speaking, it's a one-party democracy, which is kind of communist. But one of the advantages of that in a situation like this is that they really have clamped down on anything that can be like media hype and frenzy and panic and all that kind of stuff. So what Raw Heights is saying in the comments right now, saying things are getting insane out here in Utah. I thought it was a joke until the Jazz players got it. So, well, I mean, if the NBA's got it, but I noticed they'd shut that down. It was it a Jazz player who got it first? And then they just shut the whole thing down. People are going nuts. Panic buying, I would imagine. Anyone who's watching this, the last place I was able to get toilet rolls and kitchen roll and stuff like that here in Japan turned out to be Costco online. I was like really, really surprised. We went on Costco. We have a Costco, half an hour's drive away, which we usually go to. And we happened to go there like 2 weeks ago, and we bought stuff not related to coronavirus. And then when this started kicking off and supplies started dropping, my wife went online and had a look at Costco online. And paper and 1 pack of kitchen roll per person. So Costco was where we got one last order in before the shelves went completely empty here. But the shelves being empty, that's what they are is toilet papers, nappies, paper-based products. Even women's sanitary products have dried up a little bit here. The next thing that seems to be in line to go is dried noodles, like instant noodles and stuff like that. They seem to be running a little bit low. So stores are completely out of everything. I'm going to try Amazon, Costco. Yeah, that's a good one. Food is that's terrible, man, because the only reason I could think of why people are doing these panic buying is because a comment just came in the chat that I really want to talk about, but I want to finish what I'm saying about the panic buying first. The panic buying is because they're worried they'll get quarantined for 14 days and they need to have 14 days worth of supplies. I think that's the only reason why people are doing it. I can't think of any other reason why they're doing it. So 50-something's talking about the UK government, but 50-something above you in the chat is Raw Heights, who's in Utah, and he's talking about what it's like there. So you've got, America and then the UK, and 50-something says the UK government does not inspire any faith in me at the moment. I like the at the moment at the end there, because governments, I don't know how often they inspire confidence much. So, but I saw Boris Johnson last night, and I think I was talking about Japan earlier and how Japan's dealt with this and what Japan's doing to stop all the hype and to stop all the panic and to stop all the frenzy. And Japan can do it because of the way the society is structured here, but they can control the flow of information a bit. In the digital age, it's very hard to control the flow of information completely unless you're China with the Great Wall, the Great Firewall of China. But I honestly believe that Japan stopped testing people because they knew there wasn't really any point. If you look at the figures of how many people have been tested per country, and you'll see that Japan's figures are really, really low. And I think they just said very early in the game, let's stop testing because there isn't any point. All that'll happen is it'll create panic and it'll create, people freaking out, panic buying and stuff like that. But we won't actually be able to do anything about this. It's a virus that we've never encountered as a race. The entire human race has never encountered this before. Nobody has tolerance for it. And because of that, everybody's at risk. And basically what needs to happen is that we basically need many people to get this, so that as a race, we build up immunity against it, and we build up tolerance against it. And then in future years, when it comes back, it will just be another cold or another flu or things like that. I'm sure when the first strain of cold ever existed, it wiped out a lot of people. I'm sure the same with influenza and things like that. And I think that's just a biological reality. If you look at the Spanish flu from, I think it was 1918, it's just a biological reality that when a new virus comes along that we haven't built up a tolerance to and we have no immunity to, then there's nothing you can do about it. And I think Japan realized that early in the game, and they just stopped playing the game. They were just like, nah, we're not going to do this. We're not going to report on this. We're not going to, have people panicking and shutting down everything, and they get sick anyway. So if you look at the numbers of reporting in Japan, it's really, really low, especially when you compare it to places like somewhere, I think in Korea, in South Korea, they said that they tested 200,000 people. I don't think they've passed even 10,000 people in Japan. So let me read some of the chat here. So 50-something said, UK government does not inspire any faith in me at the moment. And I saw Boris Johnson on the news, I think it was yesterday, and he was saying that I could see what I thought he was doing was he was trying to walk the fine line between the reality that he knows there's nothing he can do about this. There's nothing he can do about it. But then there's the sort of, 21st century media where you have to do something about it. Otherwise, you get hammered in the press and stuff like that. So, for example, I think, and actually 50-something can correct me on this if I'm wrong, I don't think they've shut down the schools yet in the UK. And I think, realistically, the medical experts are saying that shutting down the schools isn't going to have any effect. So what Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister in the UK, is saying is like, well, maybe I should listen to that. But the rest of the world is shutting down schools. So they're like, oh my God, the rest of the world is shutting down schools. What shall we do now? Shall we do what they do so we don't get hammered in the polls at home and or not? So I was watching Boris Johnson. I kind of had sympathy for him, and I don't really have much sympathy for Boris Johnson. I'm not a Tory, which is the government he represents. I'm from a pretty socialist background, so I'm much more about workers' rights than I am about business rights. So really, Boris Johnson and I are not comfortable bedfellows, and I don't usually have much sympathy for him. But today and yesterday, when I was watching him, I could see how conflicted he was about, the actual reality of the situation, and then what you have to show to the public because it has to be all spin and stuff like that. So I felt a bit sorry for him. Rawhide says no bananas and fruit, which is astonishing to me. That makes no sense whatsoever. Anyone who's watching this, who's thinking about stockpiling stuff, don't stockpile fresh food. That's a complete waste of your time. Bananas and fruit and stuff like that will last, 4 or 5 days, maybe a week at the most. So even if you start stockpiling now, and then in a couple of days' time, you actually get coronavirus, and then you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, you're going to have a couple of days worth of fruit, and then it's going to go off. So you're wasting resources, and you're wasting your time and your money stockpiling things like fruit. If you ask me, anything perishable, I would recommend you don't stockpile that. I can understand the toilet paper thing if you're stuck in your house for 14 days and you want to wipe then yeah, go ahead and stockpile that, or things like that. But then the flip side of that is, if everybody's panic buying and you're like, no, I'm not going to panic buy on principle, then you're going to starve. So you have to sort of, even though you don't want to do it on principle, maybe you actually have to go ahead and do it. So, but it makes no sense to me. No banana, no fruit, no meats, that kind of thing. So Brannon says, I'm in Alabama. Things are mostly normal here, which is interesting, because Rawhide, who's above him, saying that it's all sold out, is in Utah, and they're not massively far away from each other, are they? I know Alabama's down south somewhere, because I love golf, and I know that the Masters is in Georgia and Alabama's in that kind of area. Well, the Masters isn't in Georgia this year, but anyway. But Utah, I think, is probably more central, and maybe is Utah near Kansas, maybe. But anyway, you guys are, both in the States. You're not like on polar opposite ends of the country like Florida and Washington State. You know what I mean? So whereas Rawhide is saying in Utah, panic buying, empty shelves, and Brannon's saying in Alabama, not so. So as soon as the news hit of the jazz players getting it, it went nuts here, says Rawhides. By the way, Rawhides has his own channel. Click on him and go check out his channel. Especially if you actually, Rawhides, everybody should go over to Rawhides' channel, because it's really chill. The music is just really, really chill. And in this panicky moment when everybody's freaking out and needs some calm in their lives, go to Rawhide's channel, listen to some music and just chill out, because that's exactly you. Everything will just drift away. And you'll just be like, okay, world's not such a bad place. So thank you for the 3 thumbs up in the chat, by the way, guys. So yeah, Rawhide, it was saying as soon as it hit the jazz players in Utah, that's when people got a bit freaky there. So and then all schools shut down here yesterday. Schools have been shut down here since I think it was March. I want to say the 2nd. If that was a Monday, it was a Monday. I think it was March 2nd that things shut down here, and have been shut down now for 2 whole weeks. So yeah, and but the thing with the schools shutting down here is 2 things happened. One is the kids quickly got very, very bored, and they just wanted to go outside and play. So they did. They went outside and played. And 2, parents needed to work. So the parents who had to work, and this is an issue in America because a lot of people work even when they're sick, and the parents went to work. So what ended up happening was that grandparents are taking care of kids a lot, and grandparents are at risk from this thing more than parents and kids. It's that generation that's more at risk. So So making sure that the grandparents are not at risk. So in the park by my house, the one I usually shoot live from in the mornings, the park by my house, you've got all these grandparents running around with kids in the park. So they're more at risk than they would be if the grandparents, the kids had been in school. So Daniel Balderrama says USA, Texas is shutting down schools for 2 weeks. 2 weeks seems to be the number, but it's running into spring break. So I think that's part of the reason why they're doing that. So Brian at Raw Heights, that's crazy. Stay safe. Absolutely. Thanks for shouting out Brandon. Thanks for shouting out Raw Heights. Great channel. Definitely go check it out. Raw Heights, that's crazy. Brandon says people do stupid things when they panic. They certainly do. And I'm very, very worried about discrimination and targeting based on race and things like that right now. It really worried me when Trump said that this is a foreign virus. A virus is a biological thing. It doesn't matter if it grew out of China. It's a biological thing, and it came from animals. And are we going to whatever animal it came from, we're going to have a cull on the animals? And I don't think it helps to be discriminatory in these kind of situations and to be blamey and that kind of stuff. So I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that being a narrative that people are going to get blamey and start discriminating. So, but people do stupid things when they panic, Brandon. Ross says, that's what scares me the most. People are dumb and want to stock up ammunition. Are they going to shoot the virus? Yeah, let's stock up. Let's get a few rounds. I suppose they've watched, what's that TV show with the zombies? Maybe they've watched a bit too much of that. God, that's going to bug me now because I like the actor from that. He was in, what was it now? What was he in? Love Actually. Love Actually he was in? Yeah, it was Love Actually. It was in, the actor from it. What's it called? Somebody say in the comments in the chat, tell me what the name of that zombie TV show is that it was really popular for the last like 5 or 6, 7, 8 years. And people watch that too much, so now they're stockpiling on ammunition and things like that, which is, maybe they're worried that there's going to be people roaming the streets trying to steal toilet paper out of your toilets. So Ross says people here knock each other out over TVs. That's right. Even if there's no food feed family, I can imagine. Right. Like it's, what's it called? Is it something Friday or something Monday? Is it after Thanksgiving in America? They have this day. Brandon says Walking Dead. That's exactly right. That's what I was looking for. The Walking Dead. People are panicking. It's going to be like The Walking Dead. But there's a day in America with the shopping when the I think it's after Thanksgiving, and people rush into the stores, and there's 4 Black Friday, says Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. And they're grabbing the TVs and all that kind of stuff. So if that's what they do for a 50-inch television, what they're going to do for bananas and food and medicine and stuff, right? That's the point. So Daniel says in Waco, Texas, there is no toilet paper or paper towels on the shelves at the grocery store. I have a photograph actually, and I don't usually get to show you guys photographs because I usually do this on my phone in the park. But because I'm doing it on my computer, then I can use my phone. And I have a couple of photographs of the shelves here in Japan. I don't know how visible this is going to show up on the camera, but you can see how empty that shelf is there. There's another shelf there, completely empty. And which way is it? There. Now, this one here, though, this shelf here, you can see is kind of empty. It's actually nappies and diapers and stuff, so it's very, very empty. But if you look at the end here, you can see there's a whole lot of stock at the end there, and that's because it's just the toiletry stuff that's gone, the paper-based stuff. It's not, the shelves are not completely empty of things. We were able to buy dog food and milk and eggs and things like that. So the empty shelves, yes, for certain things like Daniel was saying in Waco and Texas. 14 people, man. The record's 14. So if we get one more person and hit that thumbs up button. But the toilet paper and stuff like 15, yes, it's a record. But me going, yes, will probably turn people off and it'll drop back down again. Yes, it did. It went back to 14. But yeah, in Waco, Texas, no toilet paper and this is terrible. Raw, I appreciate shouting you out, man. Seriously, go over to Raw Heights channel. And you'll get some really chill music. It's a great way to relax at the end of the day, even if there isn't a virus out there. So 50 says, sorry for the typos. Don't worry about it, 50. Just keep dropping the comments. Appreciate it. Brandon, welcome to Black Friday. That's why. Looks exactly the same here in Texas. Those shelves that I was showing people, yeah, but I don't know. It's hard to say where this is going. I saw that in the States right now, the number of deaths and the number of cases and stuff like that have gotten quite high, especially in Washington State. There's something like 30 odd or 40 odd people have passed away from this. And again, that's what makes me suspicious about the numbers here in Japan, because the numbers here are quite low relatively, but this has been an issue for much longer in Japan than it has been in the rest of the world. So it's kind of worrying to me that that's the numbers appear so low here. But I think the government are just, they'd rather people have less information and not panic and go mental and destroy modern society. So Daniel says they only restock in the morning and gone in minutes. So but the thing is, I suppose nobody really knows what's going to happen next, and that's I'm an old man. I'm 40. How old am I? Am I 43? Yeah, I'm 43, and it's March. Yeah, next month I'll be 44. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten less passionate about like the extremes of things. So I know that a lot of people out there are not a huge fan of Donald Trump, or I know a lot of people out there love him to bits. And to be honest, I'm sort of in the middle because I'm old, and you realize that it doesn't really matter very much, because in terms of a president or in terms of politics, what you need over a long enough period of time is you need enough variance so that it creates balance in the middle. So you need to have, somebody from the left a little bit and then somebody from the right a little bit, so that what you're doing is, if you've got these left and right bits, you're actually dead center in the middle over time. So I understand the need for that, and in the case of Donald Trump, while I don't particularly appreciate the way he does things, there are some things that he can do and maybe should do that would be quite effective. I wish he'd get on with his infrastructure stuff. But in the case that, one of the things, for example, I just did a Donald Trump thing. Did you see that? One of the things, for example, is the stock market and business and stuff like that. So this is the presidency that boosts stock market and business and things like that. And then next you'll need a presidency that will boost like individuals and welfare and things like that. And over time, you just maintain balance. And one of the weaknesses of the Donald Trump presidency is a thing like this they're not built to respond to something like this. They're built to respond to the known knowns. They're not built to respond to the unknowns. And so in the case of the Donald Trump presidency, and American society at large in general, it's not built to respond to something like the coronavirus. And the UK is, for example, the UK is built to respond to it because it has a national health service. And the national health service is a great thing, and it can respond everybody doing the same thing at the same level of quality because it's a national health service. So the UK can do that. It can respond to something like a virus like this in a very structured and consistent way that's good for everybody at large. Whereas in America, with an insurance-based, privatized-based health system, it's different, like depends on your insurer, depends on your state, depends on your income, all those kind of things. So it's very different country to country. Japan has an amazing health system. You get a private level of healthcare for a very low amount of money, and it's government regulated, so there's none of this like ridiculous prices. I saw somebody did a coronavirus test in Florida and was charged like $3,500 for it, and I was like, that's insane. My daughter, when she was born, she had lots of complications. She's fine now, she's an absolute gem, but she had lots of complications, and her health bill when she was born was $500,000, $500,000, and it was all private healthcare here in Tokyo, Japan. And I paid zero. I paid nothing for my daughter's healthcare. $500,000 of healthcare, and I didn't pay a thing for it because my insurance paid for 70% of it, and the Tokyo government paid for the other 30% of it. So she got a private level of healthcare for free, and I think that balance between the free healthcare in the UK and then the private level of healthcare in the States is something that Japan has done really well on. So Japan is also able to respond to this well because there's enough government moderation in the healthcare sector where it can make sure everything's happening consistently and for everybody, whereas in America with that kind of mainly insurance-based system, that it's harder for people to get healthcare. So I'm not bashing the Donald Trump presidency, and like I said, as an old man, I kind of appreciate the balance in things these days more than I did as a young man, and I just appreciate that Donald Trump is over here, and then we'll have somebody who's over here that will redress any balance. And there are things that Trump does well, like business and things like that. But what he doesn't do well is respond to a virus and a national crisis that needs organization and planning rather than just sort of off the cuff. And that's just the reality of his presidency. So it's a challenge to make these things work in the States. Anyway, people are writing things in the comment. Sharing is caring. Thank you for dropping by. MU, which is that Missouri, or is that MU nothing to do with anything? I don't get why they count separate that Diamond Princess Japan total number of cases. Any idea? I can guess why they don't count it. So what sharing is caring is talking about is there was a boat docked off of Yokohama for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, which was what do they call it? A cluster. It was called a cluster, where somebody got infected and they're all in this enclosed space, about 3,500 people, and of course they couldn't maintain the boundaries between, especially with an airborne virus, they couldn't stop it from spreading across the ship. So you've got 3,500 people on a ship, and I think I'm right in saying that something like 600 or 700 people got it. And of those 600 or 700 people, maybe 7 or 8 passed away from it. And Japan has worked really, really hard to make sure that the Japan total and this Diamond Princess total are separate. So the Diamond Princess ship that was docked in Yokohama Harbor appears as a country in, I'm not kidding, it appears as a country in the list. So you'll have it goes like China, Italy. Right now, I'd imagine the list goes China, Italy, maybe Spain, Germany, France, America, Diamond Princess, Japan, like that. So it appears as its own country. Thank you for the thumbs up, whoever just gave me that. And I'm fairly sure, again, that's the government working in the background. And it's a lot to do with image and, business and things like that. They not want your country to appear to be right up there. So if you watch Japan's numbers, somebody said in the live stream earlier this week that congratulations, Japan has dropped to number 9. Japan hasn't dropped at all. Japan stayed there, but other countries have gone up past Japan. 15 people again, thank you. So Japan, it hasn't dropped here. It's just that other countries have gone past it. And all the other countries have the same sort of trajectory for the rate of infection, the rate that it spreads out across their country, except Japan. So everybody else, their trajectory is this angle, but Japan, their trajectory is like this. And I think it's because they're underreporting the numbers, because they appreciate the damage that having a panicky, you look at the stock market over the last 3 days, it's shed like 30% of its value in every country. And I think Japan knew that. So they were trying to control the Diamond Princess numbers and keep them separate from the Japan number. Way, I have two reasons why I agree with them. One reason is because a ship doesn't belong to anyone. It's probably registered somewhere. I know the Diamond Princess is registered in America, so there's an argument that maybe they should just register those cases in America, for example, or it had come from somewhere outside of Japan. It had come from Korea or Taiwan or somewhere like the Philippines, whatever. Where it had come from, should they be registered there, or should they be registered in Japan, which is kind enough to open its harbor and welcome these people in, and then use the healthcare here to take care of them. So I can see why Japan wouldn't want their numbers to be in there. But equally, more importantly, I think you don't want the numbers from these ships in your national numbers. And it's the same with what's going on in California right now. I think there are a couple of ships out there. There's another one in the Nile as well. You don't want those numbers in your national numbers, because you're talking about a very enclosed space and a very unique situation. And the national numbers, people need to read them and be able to say, this is the real risk to the general population. But if you toss in the numbers from boats and things like that, the numbers don't reflect the real risk to people out there. So the question was from Sharing is Caring is, why doesn't Japan build into their numbers the numbers that come from the boat that was docked in the harbour, which I think is empty now, but I don't know if they've emptied it yet. But I think, you know, having those numbers in there, it doesn't represent the reality of the risk to the general population on the ground. So I think that's why they separate them out, and I kind of agree with them, to be honest. I think maybe though the boat that docked in Oakland, it was off the coast of California for a while. I think it docked in Oakland and everybody got off, whereas this one in Yokohama down south of Tokyo, everybody stayed on it. So yeah. Anyway, Daniel says, yeah, emergency $50 billion fund for all of this. $50 billion. Yeah, $50 billion, but a quarter of your population lives below the poverty line. Why do you have $50 billion just sitting there? Why? They did it in the UK as well. They announced like a multi-trillion pound something or other. And I'm like, why do you have trillions of pounds when people are using food banks to live on day to day, you know? And they're bolstering the stock market by pumping a ton of money into the stock market. And I understand these things are all interconnected and that kind of stuff, but it really troubles me when somebody has to, you know, rely on a school. I was watching Ellen. Does anyone watch Ellen? I was watching Ellen on YouTube the other day. I wasn't watching it. You can't watch it here on TV. When I said, does anyone watch Ellen? I lost 3 viewers. But she was interviewing this guy who was in a principal of a school, and she was interviewing him because he had this initiative to turn one of the rooms in his school into a laundrette so that the kids could wash their clothes because they weren't washing their clothes at home. And I'm just like, that's wrong. I mean, yes, celebrate this man for doing a great job. I think it was part of Black History Month. But that's wrong. It's wrong that schools should have to have laundrettes in them so that the kids can wash their clothes. That's not okay. And I saw as well, like Jennifer Lopez, I think she's engaged to A-Rod. I might be wrong in that. I'm not up to speed. I'm so old. I'm not up to speed on things. But I think Jennifer Lopez is engaged to A-Rod. And they donated $1 million to a school somewhere, and everybody was praising them, and rightly so. I mean, it's amazing to praise people who give, especially when they don't need to give, if they're giving because they want to, not because they need to, or for a tax break, for example. So of course I'm not speaking negatively about Jennifer Lopez and A-Rod, but the fact that a school needs a private donation, a public school needs a private donation of $1 million just to function is insane to me. So especially, I mean, I'm from the UK. We have a very clear welfare system. School is funded, you know, wherever you live in the UK, schools are funded equally, unless the government funds a school more, if you know what I mean. But there's no like local taxes, and there's no, you know, like local philanthropists pumping money into the public school system. Basically, there's a baseline from the government, and then above that, you know, some certain schools in certain areas might get a bit more from the government, but it's not private at all. So my perspective on healthcare and education is very much you know, different from the American perspective. Hello, Skull Gamer Nerd, man, alive. Man, I wish I'd noticed Skull Gamer Nerd was in the chat. I watch his lives a lot. And I think this might be the first live of mine that he's been able to catch. But then again, this is only, I'm going to say, the 20th time I've gone live. Although maybe Skull Gamer Nerd has been in one of my unboxing videos when I unboxed a pair of shoes. So, but he has a great channel. Checking out Skull Gamer Nerd. And I was saying about Raw Heights as well. Check out his channel because it's really cool music and really relaxing in these stressful times. So, okay, Rawhide said we have FEMA and a for-profit health system. So the only thing I know about FEMA is the aftermath of that hurricane that hit New Orleans not many years ago. It was Katrina, I think it was called, and FEMA was in the sort of spotlight for that. Federal Emergency Management Agency or something. Yeah, taking off cooking for the kids. Stay safe. Okay, so Roz left us, but thank you, Rob. Appreciate you being here, Raw Heights, and anyone who's in the chat and can scroll back through your chat, check out what he said and go check out his channel. He's a great guy and he's really chill music, which is what we need right now. Daniel says, haha, she's great, always helping others. J-Lo, I think, is that relation to. So, yeah, J-Lo, man. She's definitely my generation. Yeah, they are engaged, J-Lo and A-Rod. So, yeah. So, I wasn't sure if they'd gotten married or if they were still engaged or whatever they were doing. So, Daniel also says a few NBA players are playing their own facilities, employees while they are not working at the arenas, paying their own employees. So yeah, I guess, I mean, that's the thing is, and it's very, very American society, is to do with people getting paid and things like that, and whether they can take time off, whether it's enforced time off or yeah, paying, whether it's enforced time off or whether it's just you know, like they choose to, or you know, so if you take the NBA, you know, as Daniel says, like there's an arena that usually employs, say, I don't know, 500 people or something, 100 of them on a full-time basis and 400 of them on you know, they run the booths and the sales and all that kind of stuff. So so those guys aren't getting paid right now, and Daniel's saying that some of the NBA players are paying those guys, you know, because NBA guys get millions of dollars, right? So so they're sharing that and making sure that everybody's doing okay. So and that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that, you know, this particular situation is very difficult for American society. So we need to make sure that that looks really red. Did I just scratch myself? We need to make sure that that everybody's taken care of in this situation, and it just things roll like that, you know. This particular situation with the coronavirus is bad for these guys, and it's actually good for these guys. There are people over here making some money off of this, the mask makers and the toiletry people and stuff like that. So thanks, Brandon. I really appreciate it. I try to go live every day right now, but and I used to do it in the park with my phone because but my data is running out on my packet from my company. So, but I appreciate you dropping out by. I really appreciate you being here. And like I said, I'll try and get back to doing those comments more often, because I've been missing out on my comments recently. So, but I too am going to have to chip off, guys. Thank you guys for checking out this live from Tokyo, Japan. I did this earlier in the video, but I'll do a little wee. There you go. There is Tokyo, Japan. It hasn't fallen apart. Hasn't fallen into the Pacific Ocean. Life still goes on. Cars still drive on streets, and people are still doing their business out there. And you know, at the moment, nothing major going on. But the big thing in Tokyo, Japan right now is that the government passed a rule to give the Prime Minister the authority to call a state of emergency. Yesterday, he got that authority, and then today at 6 p.m. he's going to go live and speak to the nation, which is the first time I've ever heard of him doing that. He's going to go live and speak to the nation about that, and I think he's going to enact that state of emergency. So he's got the power to do it now. The government have voted for that, and then I think he's going to enact the power to do that. So so that's the big news from Japan right now. Thank you guys for checking in. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys are doing okay out there in the world. It's crazy to me what's going on out there, but people need to do what they need to do in their place. I do not agree with stockpiling and buying tons of stuff off the shelf. But if you don't do it, you're going to end up hungry because everybody else is doing it. So it's one of those things that's difficult to decide which way to go. But thank you guys for checking in. Thanks for dropping that like button. I really appreciate it. And I will try and keep doing this every single day from Tokyo, Japan, so you guys can check out what's really going on. And especially tomorrow when we find out what Abe, the Prime Minister, says at 6 p.m. tonight. So for now, though, guys, from Tokyo, Japan, thank you guys for checking in. Thank you guys for watching. And I will see you guys real soon. Stay safe.